get rolling.
I'd love to look at it.
I know Jim Talbert is not going to be able to be here today. I don't know about John or Chuck. I know the mayor is here. So we'll start, and there comes the mayor. Happy New Year to everybody. This is panel number 13, our first this year. Just to review what we review before every meeting. If anyone needs a rest break, out the hall to the right, there's a men's room and a ladies' room. If we have to boogie out of here for any emergency reason, we go back out the front door, take a left, and hike down the hill. Let's go ahead and pull up the agenda, Steve, if you will, and we will do our introductions. Let's start with Pete.
Pete Porteous, CMA Properties.
Chip Boyles with the MPO and Thomas Jefferson Planning District.
Morgan Butler with the Southern Environmental Law Center.
Eddie Giles, Professional Movers Incorporated.
Mark Graham, Albemarle County.
Chuck Lebo.
Lebo Commercial Property.
Okay.
Brad Sheffield, Albemarle County Board of Supervisors.
Henry Weinschenk, representing Express Car Wash.
Would you like to introduce your exchange student?
She's still here?
We lost her. Yeah, okay. Okay. Oh, yeah, there you go. There you go. The technical team, Lou?
Lou Hatter, Communications Manager, VDOT.
Andrew Scott, Charlottesville Residency.
Stephen Davis, VDOT, ITD Division.
Alvin CTV.
Joel D'Annunzio, Charlottesville Residency, VDOT.
Nathan Humberger, Culpeper District Area Traffic Engineer.
Nathan is leading the signing team, so we'll be hearing a little bit more from Nathan later. John Lynch is at a House Bill 2 open house, which is whatever that means, but that's interesting. And Dave Covington is locked away with the technical proposals, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. Top half of our agenda is the same. Bottom half, a couple of new items. Really like to focus on the signing issue today, but we'll jump right in. Stephen, won't you pop up to item 2, if you would? The next one, yeah. We must have had the same 41 viewers at the last meeting because there were 41 in the meeting before that. 41 viewers live streaming. We still have our live streaming up today, which reminds me, for anyone watching live, you can go to Route 29 Solutions, route29solutions.org, and the agenda is there and the presentation is there as well. 94 streams last time, average minutes per stream, 25 minutes. That's all been pretty steady the last several meetings. As far as interaction and feedback, there was one comment that popped up in the route29solutions.org email inbox, and it was just a pretty brief note saying support the package, including RIO. There is now up to 111 of the input, public input postings on the website. There were 6 new ones, which were comments from 4 people. One of those was me answering a couple of questions. One preferred to bypass, but said if you're not going to do the bypass, the next best thing was doing something on Route 29. One said that any improvements to Route 29 should be elevated and built to interstate standards. We're not going that far. One asked if the report, the white paper that was prepared by Dexter Williams, had been reviewed, and the answer is that was the traffic report that Smart 29 submitted, and yes, it was reviewed. So not a lot of activity since our last meeting there. Go to the next one, Stephen. This is the feedback from the section we had last time, and actually, I think all of this came from two emails, one from Pete and one from Karen Weiner. Is there a county requirement for landscaping between sidewalks and roadways? Mark, I think we got this right. There's not a county requirement for landscaping in the right-of-way of existing highways. There is a requirement for a planting strip for new subdivisions that create new streets, but that doesn't apply to what we're doing here. Can future funds from the bypass project recently discussed by the NPO be directed to local projects? If you recall, a couple of weeks ago, there had been some discussion, I think the night before, about $93 million that were actually an estimated future anticipated funds, and they really can't be applied to anything right now. So do you need to elaborate on that, Chip, any? Or
I think you hit
any questions
the
for
key.
Chip
They're
about that?
estimated, their long-term future. A lot of variables go into
Yeah,
what they'll ever
it's a big
do
bet on the
or
come.
not.
Yeah. When will the drive-through video be ready? And Dave checked on that Monday and again yesterday, and it looks like we're in good shape for having that for our next meeting. And just to refresh memories, that would mean that in addition to the video we've seen kind of from the aerial view, it would be a drive through both on the local lanes as well as the through lanes.
Do you have any idea when that recent video, that was the comprehensive flyover, is going to be up on the website?
It's up on the website. It's up on the website, and I answered Sean Tubbs, I think, tweeted out a question about that last night.
Okay.
It's up on the website. If you go on the website and click on the Rio Road project, that rendering and that the video is up. It's the December 17th video, so the most recent one.
Okay.
It might be under the materials for our last meeting. That's where I came across it today.
I was going to say, one of the things I do, because I gave the board wrong information yesterday saying it wasn't up, but I think the reason was because if you go to YouTube and try to search for it,
You can't find it?
you can't find it. If you hit Route 29, it brings up the old one. It doesn't bring up.
It's up on the YouTube channel, the December 17th one,
Okay.
and
All right.
I'll make, yeah. So
Okay. All right.
it has been up there. I thought the old one was down, but the old one was October 14th.
Yeah.
The current one is December 17th.
Yeah, the one that I kept coming up with was the one that said 2 months old, so that was the October one, I assume.
That would be.
Don't
But
you
the
know-
new one is out there. We'll figure that out.
Don't you know that once something's on the internet, it's always on the internet?
Well, that is true. You're right. Nothing ever comes down. Yeah. But there's not a lot of difference between that October one and the December one, but the December one is out there and on the Rio
Okay.
page. Steve? Has VDOT approached property owners regarding appraisals? No, but that is expected to start shortly for the construction easements, and that's expected to start sometime mid to late January. There may be some contacts with property owners. Are panel email communications captured in meeting minutes? Anything substantive that we changed is captured either in the minutes or in one of these presentations at a panel meeting or both. We haven't had too much just idle chit-chat, but all substantive matters that we've exchanged are captured either in the minutes or in a presentation. What has been the administration's response to comments regarding Route 29 and the Rio GSI? The response is that all these projects are moving forward. We're not stopping, nothing's being held up, no third-party mediation. All the projects are moving forward to construction as we planned, the schedule we planned. Next. What is VDOT's plan for cut-through traffic on private property? Well, VDOT doesn't have a plan to send traffic on private property, but we did do those counts, if you'll recall, on local roads. I keep thinking it was 41 intersections, as I recall. Those are going to continue to be monitored, and if issues arise that relate back to construction, then VDOT's going to have to put some mitigating strategies in place. But there won't be any planned detours or directed detours by VDOT to send traffic through private property. Will there be a maintenance of traffic plan for Rio that shows a larger area? No. I mean, the maintenance of traffic plan, that sketch that we put together is the maintenance of traffic graphic for Rio. It shows the graphic that shows all the ins and outs and shows the closure of Rio through during that period. That is the graphic that pertains to Rio. Stephen? Okay, let's go back to those. As far as agenda item 3, and what we just reviewed, anybody want to go through any of those issues? Okay. This is the open period where free to put anything on the table that you want considered for the next panel meeting. Any items?
I have
Issues?
Chuck,
Brad?
I just have 2 from last night. that came up.
Okay.
I think you know about one of them. That is trying to set the expectations of what level and when the public can still give input even after the contractor is selected on the design. So obviously, I wouldn't imagine there's actually a stop dead date of input, but it kind of its impact starts to dwindle as things become more defined in the design process.
Yeah.
I think there's a question out there of setting that expectation of,
Very
what can
early-
the public expect?
Sure.
For 2015, what can the public expect from
For,
public
for
input?
2015, when, if you recall, several meetings ago, we had a kind of a check-the-box schedule for the 3 sets of design reviews as plans come through to VDOT. Those will be quick reviews. VDOT's committed to no more than 9 days to review design plans as they come through. VDOT will be doing a lot of over-the-shoulder reviews, right, with the contractor, co-located with the selected contractor. But we will, when we have the contractor, then we can figure out better of how we're going to make pertinent information available for review, how we're going to notify people that it's out there, and probably need some specific channel to collect comments for those reviews. But each one of those reviews will become successively more technical. So we'll need to figure that out a bit. But I think, at least the schedule we had, we anticipated that starting in July, I believe. But maybe it was sooner than that. We'll need to see the schedule from the selected contractor to get a better bead on that.
And the other was, it came up about, instead of it just being the one right turn lane, making it a double right turn from Rio, heading west on Rio to heading north on 29.
That won't happen.
I'll let her know.
Yeah. So.
I didn't see anything in the agenda today about the 29-250 interchange.
Yes.
As far as whether you get finalized and gone to notice.
No, that's a good question. My bad. That goes Wednesday, right? Next week, next Wednesday, it goes to CTD for award.
Okay.
Yes. So January
But that means
14th.
then if it's on the agenda, then it means that all the paperwork's been taken care of, or close to it, and looks like it's on.
It means it looks like it's going.
And then that led to, one of the things I was wondering is, once this is going, I know VDOT obviously will have regular meetings with the contractor, and is it possible for this panel to get some sort of milestones, maybe the wrong word, but just key elements, what they're going to be working on at particular points in time?
Yeah, absolutely.
And just so we can kind of let people know what they should be expecting to see out there.
Absolutely.
Timetable.
A timetable, if there's going to be lane narrowing,
Sure.
do work and stuff, and
Well, absolutely. And VDOT will start, Lou, correct me if I'm wrong here, but VDOT will also kick up a information campaign that will include some placed media, right?
Yes.
For your construction alerts and all that, but
Yes.
we'll definitely, same deal, once that contract is awarded, we can get a schedule from the contractor and then put plans in place to monitor those key milestones.
okay, thank you.
I had a person ask me to ask you that, let's say the contract is awarded to a contractor, and maybe a portion of the project, VDOT decides they don't want to do that anymore. Would VDOT then have to pay a penalty to that contractor since he's already bid on an entire package, and then one portion of it's pulled, and he said, well, I bid on this entire package, and why are you pulling it on me now? Again, the question is, would there be a penalty clause in that, I guess a non-penalty clause?
Yeah,
in the contract?
I would imagine that a contractor possibly would make a claim against VDOT in that case, whether it's compensated.
Yeah.
Or not. I wouldn't even be able to start to.
I think at Rose, they said, well, supposedly there's some scuttlebutt about the last contract with the bypass that was pulled.
Yeah.
And was there a penalty for that, or?
That contract hasn't been closed out.
No, but there, go ahead.
Well, that contract hasn't been closed out yet.
Okay.
I don't believe.
Well, it will be,
Process.
and I don't think there's a termination penalty beyond paying for work performed.
We will, VDOT will
Right.
be expected to pay for the work that they have done up to this point. So obviously, they've put a lot, at least in design terms and things like that in preparation. So we would expect, and there might be some, disagreement or some negotiations about, what that compensation is.
Yeah, but let's be real clear that for the design-build contract, there should be no expectation that the RIO grade-separated intersection or any other part of it is going to be delayed or pulled. So let's not have that expectation.
Does that, you're not going to answer this question, but does that put Skanska in a position ahead of the other two contractors because they have an open contract that's going to be closed?
No. These technical proposals will be scored, and then price proposals will be turned in. The scores for the technical proposals will be in one spot. The price proposals will be opened. You'll do your calculations, assuming the technical proposals are responsive.
Correct.
Right, that the technical proposals are responsive. They'll open the price and do your 70-30
7:30.
math, and the number's the number.
Just seems like an interesting negotiating opportunity.
Well, there's really no
Right, there's
negotiation. Right?
negotiations.
There's no negotiation.
Well, there'll be some negotiation on closing out
Yeah.
the bypass contract.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Now, if one affects the other, that's what we don't.
One doesn't affect the other. One has nothing to do with the other.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback a little bit on Mark's comment around, and quite frankly, I would want to go beyond that aspect and also go Dartmouth, Hillsdale as well, because we get a feeling that we're getting these check marks on every item here that has to do with the grade separation. That somehow we have the feeling that the other projects, there may be a lot of stuff happening, but we don't hear it. technically, I guess the land for the Best Buy ramp has been already acquired or should be acquired.
Oh, yes.
Could be acquired.
Yes, is acquired,
Is
done.
Well, for
Right.
example, Burkmart Drive, there are technically acres and acres that have to be acquired. Is that happening or not? I mean, things like that. I mean,
Sure.
are there benchmarks?
Sure.
Could we have benchmarks on all the phases
Yeah,
of this project?
we actually do, and have looked at them 3 times
Yeah.
with those schedules now that include all the projects.
I remember seeing.
And yeah, we absolutely,
We don't
we
seem
can
to
come
get-
back to those.
We don't
Sure.
seem to get updates, or we're not paying attention, or whatever, but we would like to see
Sure.
updates on all, whatever, four sub.
Yeah, I think we had 5 across there.
Yeah,
We had,
whatever it is,
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, absolutely.
Can we get, regular updates?
Yes.
Maybe every meeting come by?
Yes.
Are we making
Yes.
progress
Yeah.
on all cylinders?
We'll, I mean, if it's the pleasure to add a regular update, we will add the regular update.
Yeah.
And if there's nothing to update or report, we can say that. But absolutely, absolutely.
In theory, a lot of land could have been purchased or leased, whatever, start the process of land.
I know the city, and I know Jim can't be here today, but I know the city is moving forward with their right-of-way acquisition. I think VDOT's going to take the post office
Yeah.
property. Frankly, on Burkmar, I'm not sure, I don't think any right-of-way acquisition
No.
has started.
Any one of the design-build projects.
That's right.
So when we go into contract, that's when the final design starts. And so and they'll be developing the right-of-way plans at that point.
I see, the right-of-way
So,
lands are not
no
done.
right-of-way, what
Okay.
we had at public hearing is what we expect the right-of-way to look like in the easements. However, these could be on the same type, we talk about the RIO GSI and the right-of-way acquisition starting, sometime after, in the spring. The other ones could be on that schedule, but no sooner, really. I would expect that they might be more interested in GSI because it's got the time frame, but no right-of-way acquisition has been done. Now,
Essentially-
Best Buy ramp, the right-of-way has been acquired, the utilities have been relocated already. There might be some in-plan utilities that's done by the contractor, but the ones that we had to move already into the easements,
Right.
that was completed in that median work that happened
In
4
October.
months ago. Yeah, so
Okay.
those things have happened, that one's done.
But Henry, that's a good suggestion. We'll take that consolidated schedule that we had and boil that down into some key milestones, and then we can just put it up at each meeting and run across with an update for all those projects.
Because,
Yeah,
for example,
that's good.
I learned something right now from Joel that
Yeah,
you don't want to start the land acquisition until you have better designs for the
Sure.
right-of-way.
Yeah.
And the current one was preliminary. and-
well, there'll be a separate set of right-of-way plans that have to be
And when we
approved.
develop, whether it's design build or design bid build, when we develop the plans, which technically they will be doing as soon as they go into contract, you work on your designs that get you to your right-of-way acquisition. We get right-of-way acquisition approval from that set of plans, then you get into detailed engineering, that has a lot to do with the.
I
stuff that
didn't
goes
realize
into
it
the right-of-way.
depended on the contract. I thought that what you had done was good enough to go and send the people out there to talk to the
Yeah,
landowners.
all we would have done at this point is looked at the preliminary easements and the right-of-way, what we expect them to be, and we can start doing appraisals at this point, but no actual
Right.
acquisition.
The appraisals haven't been done yet either.
I think
Or they
right-of-way is probably getting some look at the,
Well, this is an example.
They're getting a look at it,
yeah,
but
to get the estimate.
but they haven't done any contact.
That's an example of stuff where
Yeah,
we feel that
absolutely.
somehow we spend so much time on RIO and 29 that.
I'm not going to comment on that, but I would agree. Yeah, I would agree.
understand.
Yeah.
I'm not blaming.
Yeah.
I'm just
Well,
saying.
no, you're right. It's a good point. It's a good point.
But
Yes.
Can we get a better picture? of
Absolutely.
All the other aspects.
Absolutely,
Thank you.
absolutely. Any,
I was just gonna say, I would imagine that when we get the contract on board, we will probably, that person will start attending these meetings also, or representative.
for the design bit, yeah,
and-
absolutely.
And we will
Yeah.
have their schedule at that time that shows all these activities.
Yeah. But we need to get Best Buy in there or
Yeah.
the Route 250 interchange, and then keep getting updates from Jim on Hillsdale.
And I would just add the emphasis on that 29,250. I had the same notes, Mark, because I mean, we're talking construction there. you know, what,
It's
March.
the real deal,
And
yes.
so for most of the folks I know that we talk with, they don't differentiate that that's any different than the 3 projects of
No,
29.
they-
I mean,
no,
in
they
their
should-
eyes,
sure,
we're
sure.
all in the same
Sure.
boat, so.
Well, I can tell you that there's a laser focus on that Route 29 at ramp at Best Buy, because that has to finish May 21st, 2016. And we know what happens a couple days after that. So there is once that contract is awarded, I can assure you that there'll be a small group of people in a room, they're going to have a real serious conversation and make the point that this is you can't miss, because it is construction. It is the start of, technically, the adaptive signals, phase 1 was the start, but that's a little less intrusive than being out there on that ramp at 29 and 250. That's a big deal.
That's basically a 1-year project.
So it would, if it's awarded in February, if it's awarded next week, contractors should get started, within 30 days of getting an award, and then we, remember through you all, that was scheduled to be finished July 2016, and you guys said, hey,
May.
let's move that up. So May 21, Chuck, May 21. I think there's one before. No, that is right. This, I should almost let this page drop off, because that's so old news by now. Go to the next one. We ended last year with, the last set of proprietary meetings with the 3 shortlisted firms, and then we did get, on Tuesday, we got technical proposals, VDOT got technical proposals from all 3 of the shortlisted teams. They distributed those to your evaluation committee yesterday, and I think they're starting their evaluation today of all the technical proposals.
Yeah. The reviewers, they'll review through Sunday night, then Monday morning starts.
Yeah, we're going to look at that. Right. So, as much as I'd like to know what's in all 3 of those, we're not going to know until it's until they finish all their work here. But that was a big day, and it was good to see. Not that didn't think all 3 would submit, but it's good to see that they're all in. The rest of that schedule remains the same. We already talked about it a little bit, with prices coming in on the 20th, open on the 22nd. But no one will know the results of any of that scoring until the 26th, when there's a notice of intent to award. FHWA gets a little time to review, and then we'll come and see Allison and her colleagues in February. Any questions about the schedule? Okay. And the next slide is just as redundant as can be based on what we just said, but it's just really a repeat. This is the schedule that Joel was talking about between the 7th and the 15th. The teams the reviewers, 3, I really don't even, how big is your review team?
There's 3 people on the review team, and then 1 facilitator.
Okay. So they will do their thing over the next week in anticipation of the prices coming in. Any questions on that process? The next 2 items are the Business Assistance Program update and Community Assistance and Engagement Committee update. And Chip, did we agree between you and Mark that you would give the update for both?
I graciously turned.
You graciously.
No, but I'll just let him correct me.
Okay.
But, just very briefly, and as a very quick reminder, we have 3 or 4 different committees, an oversight committee along with a business assistance, a communications subcommittee, as well as a neighborhood subcommittee. All of these groups made up of city, county, and VDOT representatives are all meeting just to remain organized and to keep a schedule going of activities. One of the things we just completed, going back to when this panel first began, was a activity list of every interaction that we have had, whether as a group, a committee, or otherwise, a public event, that type of thing, just trying to make sure that we're getting out to the public the way that we would like to. And for instance, just for the month of December, and we're updating this monthly and presenting copies to both the City Council and the Board of Supervisors now. We've had over 11 public interactions, 6 different publication mailings, 5 different media interviews, plus countless staff meetings and committee and subcommittee meetings. This schedule, the next event will be February 4th to the Board of Supervisors. They will get an update on this schedule, as well as I think will be the first presentation of the business assistant strategies, just to come before them to say they've already been presented a list, and what staff has done and the committee has worked on is which of these are realistic, where have they been done in other places, what has been the cost there, is it legal to do even in Virginia, just little questions like that.
That's February the 4th?
4th.
February the 4th.
And I know that the Business Assistance Committee and the county intends to, have conversations with some of the business community regarding that as well, to give their thoughts before getting to the Board of Supervisors for their input. I think any final decisions will come after the February meeting. This is just the Board of Supervisors kind of first cut at it.
Okay. Okay.
I have a question. And I apologize, I'm just getting unburied from holiday at a shopping center, so.
I know.
Is there a website or someplace that lists, because I'm not even familiar with any of the activities that these committees, who the committees are, who they're comprised of? Is there a website, or is it still all internal within
It's all
the
just
city,
staff.
county?
Yeah, and kind of the organizational structure, the subcommittees are just staff from city, county, VDOT, and then they're having working groups, and the real kind of events that they are undertaking, or then the public meetings. So when I talk about a committee, it's staff type organizational meeting.
Well, and on that, if you're not a part of it, just the public, where would we find out where these meetings are, what the activities are, what the plans are? Is that anywhere published, or how would we know
Not yet,
to
but
even?
I was, frankly, I was going to ask the same question, maybe a little bit in form of a suggestion. Is your committee to the point where we could migrate some of this information over to Route29Solutions.org?
What I was going to suggest is I can make this a part of our package every 2 weeks. Well, it'd be every month because it's updated monthly. No need to get the same thing twice, but so that it's included in the agenda. I mean.
Well, and I think it would be good to have it on the website. Lou, maybe Mark and Chip can work on that a bit, and let's find a place on 29solutions.org to park that, so we know where it is, and I think
up
an
until
update.
This point, there hasn't been really enough to give out.
Yeah.
But I think we're definitely getting to the point now
Now,
that we've got documents.
Just to make sure I got this straight, are we talking about item 8 primarily right now, or 7? The Community Assistance and Engagement Committee, or is it all one thing?
While they're all operating separately, they're still coming all back
Okay.
together because, you can't draw a
Yeah, I
line
agree.
between the business assistance and the communications.
Okay.
So there is a lot of overlap.
Okay.
So I would just treat it all the same. And we don't differentiate in the schedule of activities. Neighborhoods are the same as the business assistants. I mean, we just identify each individual activity.
So what would be like an example of the 11 public interactions that have taken place?
It would include a number of one-on-one meetings with business owners. It would include,
Does that include Lou?
yes,
Okay.
VDOT's included, city,
Okay.
county, and VDOT. The one-on-one meetings, it would include town hall meetings that some of the elected officials have been holding. It would include some of the public meetings with business owners as a group, smaller groups. So there's some individual, some group meetings, as well as larger town hall type meetings.
And so at this point, you're still in the formulation stage of what the plan is going to be? Is that
Yes,
correct? For
yes, and putting
communication,
dates on it.
Community assistance.
Yeah, yes.
Well, I understand you have with the whole organization, you have a process, you have to look into the legal aspects. But some guy who operates a small business somewhere between Buckmore Drive and 29, he doesn't really care what your process is. He wants to know, is there half a chance that I'm going to get some help while my sales are going down into the trash
And
can?
that has to go to the board of supervisors, you know,
That's going to be covered in
whoever,
March.
yeah.
Yeah, but that's the thing.
That's
you know,
what?
That'll be covered in March at the board
Again,
meeting.
I understand you,
Yeah.
you work on, organizational time. This guy is working on cash flow
I
and
understand.
worries. And is there anything in the pipe that possibly could come up that may possibly help him? That's really the bottom line, because the rest is, that's like explaining to somebody how the power generating and distribution network works. He doesn't care. He wants to make sure that it turns the light on.
I guess my only caution, just from my own experience too, would be, I'd be very cautious putting something out that may not work, because when you
understand the
read it
problem.
once,
Well-
you said this would happen, and
Yeah, but let me just, what I heard is that some preliminary recommendations are going to go to the board of supervisors February the 4th. So that has to
There's already
happen.
been one list
Right,
that we shared here, I guess,
Right.
a month ago.
and I think
It
that's
went to
up
the board In
on,
December,
Yeah.
as far as the business assistants, they
Right.
talked about it, and they had a whole long list of options and things that had been brought up by the business community. And basically, they were just asking the board, is there anything on this list that you want to take off? And the answer was, no, let's look at it all. And so staff is trying to work with that right now, get some more input, refine it, and then come back to the board in March with some
In
idea
March.
of a plan, well, for the businesses
Okay.
specifically,
okay.
as far as a plan for what we might be able to suggest. And then we'll have to see what the board wants to do.
Well, yeah, it's a chicken egg situation, but it still doesn't help the guy that's out there worrying. So,
Could you just name the different parties that are on this committee? The steering committee and this.
Well, you've got the oversight committee.
Right,
Which
which
is
is-
the county chief executive officer, the city's chief administrative officer, city manager, trying to think of John Lynch's title. It's John
District
Lynch.
administrator,
John
district
Lynch, VDOT,
administrator.
And then myself.
Okay.
And then the chairs from the subcommittees, and each one of those are represented by staff. I can go through each individual.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
What I'm concerned about, and I'm dovetailing on this other stuff, but is that the business community and the community at large, I don't think has representation either on the overall committee or at the subcommittee level. We're not in the discussion at this stage, and I think the process could be benefited greatly by having that discussion early before we get to the board of supervisors. So we've
All
got
these
some.
ideas
No,
came
and
from,
that's
What's that?
all the ideas being considered came from the business.
That was one meeting that we sat in for an hour,
It was also based on multiple meetings that had different locations around the intersection.
I'm just telling you what what I see as maybe a PR issue, that we're being dictated what.
Right, and that's not, the subcommittees are just trying to get this organized, and they're trying to give and take the same type of comments you're making is, here are the best ways to get business input. Here are suggestions of, do you invite 100 businesses into a meeting?
No, I think
or do you invite 6?
Yeah.
Or do you ask the chamber to give a rep? This staff group is just trying to steer the working groups who will include.
Okay.
In the case of business, neighborhoods the same way. I mean,
Right.
how do you best share information with neighborhoods? It's not trying to decide everything and then hand it to them and say, here's what a group of staff people.
That's the image that I would be afraid that is.
In December, when it came forward, one thing I mentioned to Lee was to go back to y'all on certain specifics. We talked about signage. How far would the business community want us to go with that? Because we may propose something and that may not be enough. So I conveyed to Lee that you might want to, some of these you might want to revisit with the business community on what exactly y'all are thinking, so we're not going down 2 different paths. So
Why not could we include a business representative from this panel on the oversight committee?
I don't think Lee would have any objection to that, especially if the board feels.
Now, I guess maybe it doesn't need to be from this panel, but it seems like that would be a little bit more of a direct link, but it would mean some more time for someone.
I'll communicate with Lee today about that.
Good. Okay. Is that?
If nothing else, it carries forward the transparency idea.
Yeah,
that
no,
this
I-
panel-
If y'all feel like
Yeah.
that would be sufficient, just having one person on there. If you have any other ideas, let me know. We can talk about it afterwards. I
Okay.
don't want just one person to be on there and that not be enough.
So I'm good. The subcommittees are then, you sent around a document
Right.
on this.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've read it. Subcommittees are then going to form working
The
groups.
working groups, yes.
Working groups, that's where, I'm not, the idea to include a panel member on the subcommittee may be great, but the working group is where you're.
That's where the real interaction is going to take place.
My only advice would be to put a representative on the executive committee, and whatever happens with the other committees happens, but,
And Phil's the PR guy. He knows.
the question is business represented? The answer is either yes or no. I mean, and I think personally, the only reason I recommended one is because I think we've got one there was a point where that committee was going to be a tad bit larger, and my reaction to that was make it a tad bit smaller and have one rep at that executive level. So there's one VDOT, MPO, city,
And it only
county.
meets just once a month, so
Well,
it's not a very.
Well, but you don't have too many more months until January 2016. And some people will make decisions like, do I renew my lease or do I bail and go and lease somewhere else? So what I'm saying is,
Okay.
for people out in the area, the sooner,
Better late than never.
That's right.
the sooner they know, okay, I'm going to get tremendous amount of relief, because I'm just making this up, okay? That local government will, whatever, not only cut all my taxes, but whatever, give me a subsidy, make up crazy stuff, okay? But if there is something where the guy can say, well, maybe I should stay because, yeah, I'm going to suffer for so many months, but I also will get all these breaks and maybe I get, maybe a check sent for once a month for those 3 months.
Okay.
Whatever, I'm making it up, but
Mayor?
you would feel better that, yes, there's something in the works, there's something in the work. There are a lot of people from local government working on this, and it doesn't do anything.
Okay. Mayor?
Which one of you 5 is ready to join the committee? Which one of you 5 ready to join the committee?
Somebody that's young and very active, which
Did
is
we
not
initiate
me.
this idea? There we go. Is it safe to say that this group the consensus is to ask the board to do that?
Ask the board
To include a
to,
business member?
Does the board have to take an action to
No,
include
no,
a
no, I'm
business
just,
member?
I'm conveying this to Lee. Should I say that it was a consensus
I-
on this?
If it were me, I would say we are going to include a business
Yeah.
member. I can only speak for
agree with you. I
myself.
want to make sure there's no
And
wild opposition.
would there be, I would like to see it be a member from this panel, because I just think the connectivity, the transparency makes more sense in terms of feedback.
From a selfish standpoint.
But somebody has to do it.
From a selfish standpoint, it would be a whole lot easier not having to bring somebody up to speed of where we are
You
today.
should have used volunteering.
John Hunley.
Yeah, that's right.
Teach him not to show up.
Is that something you all want to consider?
I'll do it if you guys would.
Okay.
I nominate Pete.
Second.
Copy on this email, Pete.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Jeff. But Lou, I would like you to get with Chip and maybe Mark in terms of the website. I think there's some stuff on the county's website, which is fine, but let's get it in one, let's also get it on route29solutions.org, and we'll link where we need to link, because Karen and Henry both make the point that people need to know what's out there. Anything else on, just click through on item 7 or item 8. Okay, let's move on to item 9, which I encouraged us to consider as a pretty key point for us right now, moving into 2015. And this is a bit RIO-centric, Henry, and it probably does need to be viewed more broadly. But the issue of temporary construction signing and permanent signing at RIO is going to be a little more meatier subject than signing on Berkmar or Hillsdale or one of the other. You met Nate earlier, and Nate has been leading a team. This just met a couple of times, but Nate is leading a team that is working on some preliminary thoughts on signing. And this has been a technical in-house team. We're going to hear from Nate a little bit, but they've met a couple of times with some representatives from the county. They've talked a bit what we've talked about these variances from existing ordinances for temporary signing. They talked a bit about this Todd's signing, which is sort of logo signing not on facilities, on facilities that don't qualify for interstate logo signing. And did I say that right, Nate? Tourist-oriented directional sign. Tourist-oriented directional sign. They've talked a bit about some concepts for maps and brochures that could help educate people in terms of how to use local lanes, how to use the through lanes. We've got another team meeting planned for February. But Nate, could you, or Joel, spend just a few minutes kind of giving us a little bit more meat on the bones there of not what you've only been looking at, but a bit of a vision for what you will be looking at, and how input from this panel can help. And at some point, I think we'll want to get a schedule from you as well, so we know when you need input from us. But if you could take us through that a bit, that'd be great.
Yeah. Well, and so this team has somewhat come out of some of the discussion here on this panel, and we've kind of looked at it. The first couple of meetings have been more of somewhat of an informational, kind of exchanging. Again, like Philip mentioned, we've been meeting with the county very regularly. And what we want to do kind of at the outset is we've been kind of focused on what are our current options. Let's identify everything that's kind of doable now, without any action. That's just options that are available. So some of those things that have been identified are the TODS program. And you can kind of break that down into short-term and long-term, things that we'll do during the construction process, and then longer-term when now obviously we have a new configuration. So now we're looking at people having to navigate, a new alignment, new interchange, those kind of things that they're not used to now. So as far as the construction side, we've been looking at what can be done, what kind of signing can we provide within the right. And so we're working on kind of drafting some very rough draft plans. Now, obviously, the final MOT, one of the reasons we're scheduled in February is when we kind of get through this technical proposal process. We want to kind of have a good idea who the contractor is going to be that we're going to be working with, because they're going to do the ultimate MOT plan, and based on their proposals, that'll kind of have an impact on how that final plan looks. But what we want to do is say, all right, which businesses are going to be impacted, which entrances are going to see some changes, and those kind of things, and how can we sign those and provide for those? What is allowable under Work Area Protection Manual, MUTCD? What are those options that we can do? And we've obviously been working with the county for, and this is where businesses can provide. I know there's ordinance. This is for permanent and temporary signing. So what are potential options for either relaxing those, or what's available now that can be utilized? What changes would anybody want to see? Okay. And then obviously the longer term, we're talking about TODS program, which we can't do the logo program because it's not a controlled access facility. So that's a
Nathan, why don't you just explain the difference between the
Sure,
two?
absolutely. The logo program is what you traditionally see on the interstate, the gas, restaurants, hotels. But that requires a controlled access where you have full control of access, interstates, or a controlled access primary would be where you see those, and that's what's required. Now, the TODS program is, as Phil noted, the name tourist-oriented directional signing. So that allows sort of logo-like signing on other roadways. So you see those. There's some out there now on 29 that you can observe for different restaurants, different hotels, different attractions. And there's some different requirements for the program that you got to meet. And so one of the things that our committee is working on is identifying the businesses that do qualify for the program. And so if there is going to be, so just for example, hotels, gas, restaurants very easily qualify. Things such as banks would not qualify under the current guidelines. So we're trying to make sure we just very clearly identify that. And that's where I kind of mentioned the first couple of meetings have been, let's get all the information together on what's possible. So, and then part of that, not only identifying what qualifies, but then how are we going to work the sign? Because obviously the new configuration, we're going to have a very short space. Let's have some consideration of how that's going to work in the final configuration, where we can get these signs, how they should function, those guys.
Is TODS a state program, or is that also a federal?
I believe it's kind of, the guidelines are kind of dictated at a federal level, but the state, the program is actually run by the same people who run the logo program.
Virginia logo. Okay.
So if any business owner wanted a TODS signing, they would apply through Virginia logo. There is a fee to get those signs up, similar to the logo program. Yes, sir. But those are kind of some of the things we're working on, the kind of just the high-level version, things we've been discussing, things we're working on. And of course, where this panel can be very helpful is, again, we're identifying what is doable under current guidelines so that we can communicate that to you. If there was something different,
right,
that you were wanting to see, or something we hadn't considered, that's certainly something we would want to take into account.
Because I would think something that we want to consider is beyond the, I've got to pay to get a sign. I mean, I understand that part, but I think we're also interested in look, we're taking what's a very wide intersection right now and turning part of it into a local street and part of it into an underpass. And all of those entrances that exist today are all going to, so there is no limited access here. I mean, all of those entrances that exist today are going to continue to exist. And that the local lanes will not only be a local lane to turn left or right, will also be a local through lane across that intersection. So in my head, I kind of keep sort of envisioning how do you sign this north and southbound local street with the through lanes.
Well, yeah, that's, you know, the situation here. And on the interstates is, first you got an exchange, then you get business building up somewhere nearby, and then you put out the logos. Here, the business exists. They maintain their access, but they have one problem. It's like, I'm going to maintain your diet, 3 meals a day. And I'm bringing you down to 1,000 calories a day, not 2,000 or more. So that's really their problem. And technically, it's caused by VDOT building this great separation. So, and when you look at that half a mile or so of the great separation, that is a limited access road. So why not use the logos if at all possible? I mean, unless it violates the Constitution or something, couldn't you provide those logos?
That is a federal requirement, that it be a limited access.
Yeah,
or
it
the
is.
specifically logo program.
From the point of view of the people that are left stranded up there, it's limited access. Because now you
Well, it's not limited access in any way, shape, or form in any regulations that govern any state or any federal road. So I understand what you're saying, that if you're in the through lane, then you're not going to access one of these facilities. But there is no limit of access in the sense of administering any program.
The real point is, if you want to go to some of those businesses that you can identify quickly by logo, you have to make that decision, just like at an exit on the interstate. You have to make that decision ahead of time, because later you can't make it.
Right. And that's why we're definitely looking at the TODS program
Right.
as one of the best avenues available. Again, it's not the logo program specifically, but it's kind of as close as we can get to try to meet what you're saying, to kind of get that direction for, in advance of the limited access to get people where they want
What
to
I'm
go.
saying is, and the tourist program, I guess, is the one was wineries and Panera Bread, 3.1 mile or whatever, right? That's a tourist.
Yes, those are the
Okay,
TODS.
no logos. Obviously, the logo goes much quicker through the eye. A lot of these things, 1.3 miles to something, generally are totally meaningless to me.
Yeah, I think there needs to be some, well, we won't need to hear from Pam. I think there needs to be something more overarching than that. Because I don't think we want a bank of signs that says, Company A, Company B, Company C, Company D, Company E, because all of that's not going to be.
That's a challenge to it.
I think we need some overarching thing that as you're approaching Rio, that says, local access and signs those lanes, signs the through lanes, and then once you're on the local portion, maybe there are some more definitive signs that perhaps people have to pay to get on, but you got to get them there. You got to get them there.
Again, this is a general discussion. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I figured this all out on the country. I walked in here today, I had no clue. But I like the idea of the logos for those that have logos. Because once you are on the local road, well, then you're already there.
Right.
The thing is getting there and getting there early and knowing when to get there. That's really the critical thing, because you either know that you have to be making a decision somewhere in front of Colonial Auto Center to go to a Jiffy Lube that is out there on the other end, almost at 29th Street.
That's right.
So how, I had the exact same thought, sort of, one key here is making sure drivers know early.
Stephen, can you pull up the rendering? Go
This is
ahead.
where I need to be if I want to stay in the local access lanes. This is where I want to be if I'm just trying to head through this area. And then I think you address that, and then we can step into, okay, once you're on the local lanes, what are some of the sign features we want to be there? But, so, tackling that questions first, seeing through it, what are some of the ways that, when we have this existing situation today, where an interstate may split, some of the ways you do that, you've got, of course, the big green signs overhead that say 64 East. What does that mean? Points down, sometimes you have painted on the blacktop as you're going to 64 East. One thing I was thinking, and I don't know that this has been done before, but maybe you just, instead of painting words on the pavement, and in an effort to avoid having a bunch of overhead signs, or to at least minimize the number of those, what if you actually painted the color of the local lanes a different color? So it's not black. Just some way, before you get there, where it's not just, you'll have maybe a sign overhead saying local lanes here, the through lanes here, but it becomes very visible to the driver at a surface level that, oh gosh, local's yellow, I need to get over to that yellow.
And the signs could be maybe, I don't know, if it's permitted, color coordinated to the lane
Right.
color, so that when you're visually driving, you see whatever that color is, and then the lane color, and that.
What you're saying, because on hydraulic road, as you're coming south on 29 by Stonefield, if you're not in the right lane, you're making a right. I mean, if you're not in the left lane, you're making a right turn, and it's too late. You can't get over without having a fender bender, so you're making a right turn.
So if it became, part of the key is making it very apparent early on that
Yeah.
I need to be in this lane, but just having the words painted on the lanes often isn't effective.
Right.
Traffic is backed up, you're seeing sort of one word at a time. Having a whole bunch of overhead signs isn't always effective. Just wondering if maybe before you even get to the point where the lanes separate, there's some way to clearly demarcate. I keep using yellow as an example, but maybe these lanes leading into the local access lanes become yellow.
Places are doing it all the time.
Are we
Bicycle
capturing
lanes.
all these? Let's be sure we're capturing all these. So I suck at writing, to be honest with you, so I'm gonna stop. But, yeah, I don't think we shouldn't be limiting our thought to what is or isn't allowed. We may have to later, but,
Well, thanks, Phil, for saying that, because that's really the point I was trying to make.
yeah.
Can you stretch it? I mean, I understand it's not exactly the limited access road.
Yeah.
Can you somehow stretch it some way creatively where maybe you get some sort of an exception? Because it's a somewhat exceptional project where you have grade separation on roads that are not limited access. That's actually what makes this pretty unique, that it happens very infrequently. And
Yeah, you're exactly right, because normally, all of these entrances, they would either wouldn't be there or would all go away. They're all going to be here and stay. So we've got the issue of getting people here first. Here
Assuming
and not here.
they
Assuming
want to go there.
Yeah, they want to go
They
there.
have a
Right,
reason.
Right.
And they know what the reason is.
Right.
This is where I'm kind of, for the time being at least, arguing in favor of the logos for those that have logos. Because that is, oh yeah, I need to go to Quickie, Quick Lube, and I see the logo and I say, I need to be local. Otherwise, I didn't realize that local meant me because, what did I know where local is and what's on local? So telling people what is on local is one way of ameliorating the impact. I mean, if we're trying to ameliorate the impact on the businesses, is to tell them what businesses are there. Once you have made the decision to be on local, it's fine. Then you're on the local road, you will find them.
I agree, but I just don't see how you could possibly identify every possible business.
That's a challenge. I don't have the answer to that. But
Well,
that's
let's
a
keep
challenge.
thinking of that, though. That's one thing we need to capture. Signing, and I know there are issues with colors of signs, but
Well, what I was just saying, I think that Morgan brought it up, is the overhead signs. I believe in the RFP there were 2 overhead sign structures. Prior, northbound, southbound, prior to where these lane split occurs, to direct people which lanes are local and which lanes are through lanes. What exactly those signs are going to say, I don't think we know at this point, but I don't think the intentions of those signs is to obviously have any sort of business name on them.
Right.
But definitely direct people, if you want to access Ryle Road or the businesses along Ryle Road, you need to be in these right 2 lanes. If you were looking to go past this area or through Woodbrook or something like that, you to be in these through lanes. Now, I don't know exactly what those signs are gonna say, but those would be the green signs, obviously, and they'll be, just like as you're going south towards the Best Buy ramp, to guide people where to go there, like I think Chuck was referring to.
Yeah.
And I'm just suggesting maybe we could supplement those with pavement paint or pavement markings beyond just like painting an arrow in the word only, but in some clear.
I think, yeah, and we'll go back and I think we need to.
Well,
I don't know about.
I think
pavement,
this is going to be a case, though, Joel, where once we have a contractor on board, what's in that RFP and what gets delivered is going to have to be a little room for some give there.
And that's an interesting idea for, you're talking about colors, but I think, even when you have like HOV pavement markings and like that would be much more manageable if we're able to implement something like that, as opposed to,
Well, painting the whole pavement.
I've seen
I don't
painted
think
bike
that's
lanes,
exactly
I've never seen painted lanes before, but symbols are a lot easier. And I don't know if that's something we can.
Well, I think what we should be doing today is capturing everything, from 100 signs to no signs, to painting all the pavement, to painting none of the pavement, to having special markings or
I'll throw out
patterned brick stamped.
Yellow brick road.
That, with painted yellow and little munchkins carrying
from
something.
a little bit
Yeah.
more generic, just as an idea, is rather than calling it local lanes, why not call them the business lanes?
Well, let's write that down.
I mean, I don't.
Write that down.
You see it all the time, express route here, business district here.
That's right.
Why can't it be business lanes?
Well, what do you call the other lanes?
Through lanes.
Through lanes, okay. So obviously, the overhead sign is probably going to say business, for example, in through lanes. And that's obviously the big sign across. And I go back to the interstate, okay, I'm sorry, and maybe it's not legal yet.
No,
But
that's
on
okay.
the interstate, the good thing is they don't have all the logos together because they group them by hotels,
Right,
food,
right,
by whatever.
right.
So that technically, you could say in advance, if you go to these food places, logo, use business lane. If you go to whatever, Hess Gas, blah, 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 use business lane, so that people are told in advance what businesses are there, because that's the whole problem, is that they have to know where the businesses are, and this way they have half a chance to be recognized that, okay, if I want to go to this particular business or this type of business, I better get on the business lane, okay? Now, if it can be done legally, that's something you guys have to work out. But I think there's some wisdom in trying to emulate what they do in interstates, if it can be done.
Pete, you were going to.
I think that, a couple things. One, I think the term local lanes versus business lanes is probably more universal in terms of what's being done in other locations, and so people that are traveling through might understand that because they see it in other municipalities. The same function generally. So I would be for naming them local lanes. But I'm more concerned about the quadrants themselves and what the northbound traveler trying to get to the southwest side of 29 as they come up onto Raya. How do they know how to get to Colonial Auto Center? How do they know how to get to, if they're traveling, southbound, how do they know how to get to Fashion Square? How do they know, how to get diagonally across? Because those are going to be the biggest changes both during construction and after. And we as businesses need a short-term plan to get through the construction period, but we also need to change our marketing strategies on giving directions out to our customer base. An idea that I'd float is the county has plans far greater than I've ever thought about what they want to see here. Naming the 4 quadrants could give some marketing anchor to those businesses moving forward. Just A, B, C, and D is not what I'm after, but giving them some character. But that way.
Talking about a branded name?
That's
or
I mean,
Yeah.
you can call one Colonial Auto Center, but I mean,
we're all for it. Yeah, okay.
But my point is
No,
that the businesses in said quadrant
Yeah.
could then build an identity in that quadrant, and even the residences, the neighborhoods.
So it could be a branded quadrant it could be a branded name that's not necessarily one of the businesses.
That's what I mean.
But still give it,
Yeah, I wasn't.
Businesses may
Right.
change.
it's pretty interesting.
I wasn't suggesting.
No, I-
North, South, East, and West. I don't care, but it gives an anchor brand to build from moving forward.
And is your thought then that businesses in that quadrant could incorporate that brand in their market?
In their identity. Colonial Auto Center at
At the northwest quadrant.
the Northwest quadrant.
Pretty good idea.
I think we should have. I think the community deserves more character in naming, other than Northwest, Southeast. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
But it's an idea.
That's a
could-
pretty intriguing idea.
Because Morgan's point about naming all the businesses on all the signs is not really reasonable, because there are just too many names and too much
Yeah.
space.
It's like being at an airport.
It could keep the
Shopping
landscape
center in
clean
Fredericksburg.
and clear on the roadway if we just said this way to the.
That's a pretty intriguing idea.
So you guys run with that.
And then we create an app for their phones, so they can go in and see what businesses are in each quadrant.
Well, I mean, the county could help us market that.
Yeah.
Well,
Then we
that
have
brings
more
up
collisions because
a
people are
good
looking up
point,
and
I
down.
think, and I don't know enough about technology to know how it operates, but I think also making sure that with the major apps, the Google apps and the Wazes and stuff, is somehow making sure that if they put in your address, if your address by GPS coordinates may take you up for a U-turn, when in reality, the best way is to take a
You
left
guys will do that.
and turn off Arroyo. I think that would be really important to try to make sure that the apps have the most correct information.
Sure. VDOT coordinates that, I mean, as all DOTs do with, I don't know if you do it with all of them, with Google Maps and all of them, and Nathan, that may not be your gig. I don't know, but I know from developing the 511 program, 511 program, that will happen. That will happen. The movements through here, as they occur at post-construction, will get to Google and Waze and whatever other ones are out there these days. I don't know. But we're not just going to stop this discussion today. What I was hoping today, we could just kind of get some broad ideas, just like we did with the first panel and the first meeting of this panel, capture all the ideas, then start working through them a bit. But because this signing is going to be, this thing will work fine traffic-wise. That's not going to be a problem. But in terms of signing it so that the local or business lanes or local business lanes, whatever they end up being called, function locally, I just believe this signing piece is a big deal. As you said, for 2,000 feet in either direction, you've got to be in the right spot before the 2,000 feet. Yeah.
I've got one more that I've been, and it's specifically like with the mall, I think, and with the actual highway signs, is you see often you have to, the next left is Smith Street, but then you turn off of there onto Jones, and you'll see ahead a sign that says to Jones Street, take a left here. And I'm thinking for the mall, that's almost going to be very crucial heading south, is to have a sign that says Mall Drive, take next left, or whatever the wording may be.
Well, there you want to be in the true lanes to go to the mall. If you're heading south.
No. You'd want to be in the business lane.
Well,
No,
Which, yeah,
That's,
Mall
yeah.
lanes.
it's-
No,
you take the left on
Isn't
Rio,
it how that's gonna stack? And you're-
At,
if you're
if you're
heading-
going south at 29th Place, you could be in the through lane or the local.
Right, but kind of, I guess my thought is if you wanted to make the very first turn toward the mall, you would turn left on Rio. So you'd be heading east on Rio.
Oh, and in that-
Then a right into Mall Drive.
Yeah, you could.
And I'm just thinking myself as a consumer, if I see a sign that says to Mall Drive, I don't need to see Fashion Square Mall. I know it's the mall. I think things like that would be really helpful and probably easily doable.
Well, that's an interesting thing, because what you're bringing up is what would the mall's management preference would be, and I'm not putting Karen on the spot, don't answer the question right now, but that's the kind of stuff that you have to work with the individual business and find out
Right.
which one they would prefer to be signalized for or signed for.
And I could probably bring you some examples of stuff, sure y'all have probably seen before in different areas, but I know one of our properties in the Charlotte, North Carolina market is right on the interstate, the Mills property, and it specifically says, because there's several lanes you can go to get to the property, but it specifically has the property name on all the overheads, and because there's a lot of other business surrounding it, to be very specific, because it is such a destination to get to that locale.
Yeah, essentially, that quadrant is Fashion Square, that particular quadrant.
Still thinking about this naming the quadrants. That's pretty.
They're all going to be named Phillips Duquette.
No, that'll only be if we go past September 2nd.
Memorial.
Joel, a clarification regarding the RFP, and I don't know it verbatim. You said that there were, it called out for 2 overhead signs. Is that all that's in the RFP?
Not for signing, but the structures that go over the lanes themselves. One north, I believe, and I'll double check on this, but there's one as you go south on 29 before the lane splits, and one as you go northbound on 29. Same situation that you have at the Best Buy ramp. That doesn't mean there'll be no more signs directing traffic, but the large truss overheads.
Actually, you're not referring to Best Buy, you're referring to the sign that's near Express
Just-
Car Wash.
Yeah.
That one. yeah.
But it directs you, when you get
Yeah,
down to that
I know.
area, what lanes.
It tells you what lanes to be.
Yeah, it won't be
depending
the
where you
only
wanna go.
signs, but that'll be the only, I believe that's the only overhead structural sign.
Well, that was the only one. You have to include
In the
something in
RFP.
the RFP for them to price.
Yeah.
And VDOT has this by code, so how far back does it have? I mean, I want to know where it's going to go.
It would probably be very similar to where the car wash is versus where you have to,
Probably a
there's-
mile
I don't
out.
know where it is, I don't know exactly how far up it is, to be honest with you.
It probably will be somewhere just past Woodbrook.
I would imagine it.
On the.
Because it
south
has to give
side.
you enough time to figure out where you want to be.
Right.
And then make that maneuver. Then you have 4 lanes to make that maneuver now, so if you need to get all the way over, you need to have time to do
And the
that.
one on the south side may be on south of 29th Place, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I would
Mm.
imagine it would be,
Yeah.
But it may be south.
That was one of the questions I had, I think, on the last meeting. I apologize, I was in that. I sent the email. I see it was in the public comment section for today, about seeing a larger overview of the map. That all we see is just this immediate intersection area, and that would be even a good reason to see a little bit longer view where the signage is.
The video shows a longer view, and kind of what I've envisioned for that going forward is, when the contractor is on board, in addition to just design plans, there'll be signing plans developed and maintenance of traffic plans developed, and we can continue to update the longer view with that information as we get it. So we see where is that sign structure going to be? Because you're right, you're not going to see that. You're not going to see that here in this limit. But you wouldn't see it on that maintenance of traffic graphic either, because that would be so small. You wouldn't know where anything was.
And even for the temporary, during construction signs and the placement of those, where
Yeah.
they will be
And those will be more dynamic, because as construction changes, probably not too dynamic during the 103-day period, though, now that I think about it.
Yeah, it almost looks to me like you want to first design the permanent signage and then see how much of the permanent signage you can put up at early stages of before the construction even starts, and then see if you have to enhance those temporarily. It's just a thought, again, it's not fleshed out, but it's a thought that comes across.
Yeah, that may also have some applicability here. I'm just thinking, because of the way we're constructing this, and the fact that these business lanes or local lanes, this intersection, except for the through lane, the underpass, is going to be like it is out there today. So might be able to do some of that.
Get an early start by kind of backing in, starting with the permanent, and then see if how much you need different or enhance for temporary.
I just want to make sure we're getting all this written down. I see Lou and Andrew writing like crazy, so good.
It's also on the tape.
It's also, yeah, it's on the tape. Yeah, it's on the tape. Okay.
Okay.
Any other thoughts?
I'd just like to add, if anybody else has anything post-meeting here, that we can take back to the design committee, like any ideas, naming the quadrants or the lane markings or things like that. I'd like them, it'd be great if they could email them as they have those thoughts.
No, we're going to get it all. We're going to get all this. You mean any other thoughts after me? Oh, yeah, sure. Well, we'll be back here in 14 days. We'll be back here again before he meets again, too. So, because I don't want us to make the mistake to try to solve everything in one discussion. There's a lot of ideas out here that we need to pull together, have them in the minutes. And Nathan, you can roll that around in your head, because somewhere we're going to have to marry, well, how do we always do it with how we're going to do it here and what we want. And there'll need to be some give and take. Some things, in other words, if the universe is a big box, we can get near the periphery as close as we want. If we step outside of it with something that violates a law or causes us to lose federal funding, we're going to want to know that. We'll want to know about that.
We don't want to have a disaster.
We don't want, no.
But on the other hand, if we can emulate some of what is done on the interstates, where they cluster the signs, they're not all together, and they tell you in advance that the next exit is the one you need to take.
Yeah, that's more the gas, food, and lodging. This may be a little bit more retail, something.
Well,
but yeah, no, I hear what you're saying.
I argued that one, but I said if it can be emulated and it doesn't create other problems, either technical or legally, we should try to at least pursue it.
Does the Todds do that?
So you don't have to specifically group the same businesses, but you do put so many, you can group them together. So it would be possible. There is a limit how many you can have on any single structure. So certainly it would be possible.
But that's a limit of a specific name, like Henry's Car Wash, right?
Well, there's just a limit to the number of businesses that would be on the
A
same
number of
structure.
businesses.
Essentially, they're slabs.
So it would be possible that you add a couple structures
to have more.
There would be freedom to group
Yeah, okay.
ways.
And there's already that type of signage on 29, just before the mall.
Right.
Yeah, you can see some of them out there. There's
Right.
not too many, so we would be probably talking about something on a little larger scale. And of course, another thing that's important for us too is, I know a lot of good discussion on the permanent sign and the direction of the final configuration, but during the construction process, I know there's a lot of concern over the 103-day period. You know, if there's anything that's helpful that you feel will be useful. You know, again, we're working on some draft plans. The contractor worked the final MOT plans, but things that as business owners you feel are most effective, you know, knowing your customers better than we do, you know, certainly we're always open to considering those things as well.
Would there be a meeting with each merchant, each business? Or will there just general meetings?
Sorry,
Will there be a meeting with each business?
meeting with business?
Meetings with each business.
Yes, I know Lou's already met with several, and there definitely will be a lot of public outreach. I don't know if we would schedule that, but I think we're always open to meeting with anybody.
Well, we can,
who wants to meet with
yeah,
us. So,
I think we may want to schedule, we may want to think about some meeting that's, maybe it's one of these meetings, that's even opened up to a broader group for that purpose. I think it's a big deal, it's a big deal here.
For Todd's signing purposes.
For signing. Because they're, I may be wrong, but I'm just thinking in this particular case, the construction signing will be, I believe, more static than the normal project where you have rolling construction for several miles and temporary exits are opening and closing. I mean, for that 103-day period, we're going to know what this intersection looks like.
One more comment. Even if there are signs which are illegal signs, temporarily, when I was planning director, I can tell you that I would say, yes, it's an illegal sign, but you have 90 days to take it down. It gives you 90 days to use it.
Right.
That way, in 3 days, at least there is some signage which can be temporarily, illegal, and you follow the rule, the administrator, well, look, you need to take the illegal, you give 90 days to take it down. That way, the 90 days will be enough to cover most of the time, 4 or 5 days.
Or is this some of the issues that you're
The
considering?
accountant's already looking at it.
Right.
We're looking at the idea of an extended period, no fee for the temporary signs. We're looking at an overlay area, a specific area where we have a tremendous relaxation on those temporary sign standards, recognizing their special circumstances. Yeah, we're trying to look at all those kind of things right now. So.
Okay.
I mean, banners would be allowed?
20. I think they have to be less than
We're still
25
trying to
feet.
figure out the blend. We haven't figured out the blend.
23
Is
feet.
that horizontal or vertical?
I think that, I've said this before, but I think it's really important to remember that a lot of businesses won't know what they're faced with until they're in the middle of it. And so, not only are we doing the best we can as a group and as a county to make sure we've got, the relaxed stuff and that sort of thing, but also having the ear for that emergency situation where that business owner that didn't know or wasn't prepared or the traffic pattern just didn't work out to be exactly what we thought it would be.
Right.
So that we can get that up and running, right away. Because 103 days, even if it's a 30-day turnaround on a permit, it's a third of the time.
Oh, yeah.
And so we
Yeah.
just can't afford to not be reactive in the heat of battle.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great point, Pete. We're trying to be real sensitive in that, both in time for issuance of permit, we're really looking for it. We're trying to figure out how we can do it online. You can do it right then, instantaneously, not even have to come down. But beyond that, looking at, can we build in with an overlay certain administrative flexibility, ability to administratively modify those standards if we find things just aren't working quite right. Because you're absolutely right. You've got, 103 days. We haven't got time to go back and revise ordinances.
Right.
And whatever 25 things we think of, the first issue will be
Of course.
the 26th.
Right. Never fails.
Yeah, yeah.
A free-for-all area is what you say.
Well, I will go there.
Which means keep the people that do the zoning signage thing out of that area. Tell them there's a no-go zone for that.
Summer vacation.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Okay.
Send them all on vacation for 104 days. There you go.
There's a lot of good thoughts out here today. I mean, Nathan, is this helpful to you? We need to help you, but you need to help us as well. Let us be broad of thought here, but keep us from we don't want to get to the end and find out that you had great ideas and we can't do any of
Right.
them. So we don't want.
No, I think it's definitely good discussion, and that's what we were looking for. That way, some of these items, we can kind of, frame what we can versus what we can't, what's in the universe and what isn't, and what might require some special exceptions or some further discussion. So
I think what I'd like to do is we'll get the notes that have been taken, get that to you and say, hey, this is what we talked about. You can make sure, okay, that's what I heard. Ask any questions if you need to, and we come back again like you to come back again on the 22nd, so we can continue this discussion a bit in prep for your February meeting with your bigger group.
And that would be great, because I'm sure if you guys are like me, usually it's after you think about it for a long time, or you're driving in the car, that's when you think, wish I'd have thought of that. So if you have other things, hopefully, over the course of 2 weeks,
Absolutely.
we come back, have some other ideas, being around the intersection, just driving around.
Are you in the Northwest office? Or are
I'm
you-
based out of Culpeper, but.
Oh, okay, but you're,
I
all
do
right.
Culpeper District.
All right.
So certainly, do hope
Okay.
next meeting have some other ideas as well.
Yeah, keep us on your calendar every 2 weeks for a bit, so it's a big deal.
Yeah, I think some pictures, photographs, whatever, that a lot of us don't really are so sure that we know what the town's signs are.
Yeah.
Like, I'm guessing what they are. And as a matter of fact, I didn't start seeing those until a few years ago. Before, I'd never seen them, or at least they never caught my eye.
It is a relatively newer program. The wineries have always been there, but the programs, as far as involving some other things, is somewhat newer than
And then,
obviously logo.
what else can be done with interstate highway clusters? Can it be stretched to this unusual situation or not? Or maybe is there a better way to do it? But,
Yeah.
if I had to make a decision on the spot, then I can violate all the federal rules. I would probably go for that one and say, way up, put a sign up for all the fast food places that happen to be on that stretch, and then say, use local/business, whichever one you're picking, and so that they know what they have to pay.
Mm-hmm.
But there may be better ideas.
But this is important because, like you mentioned earlier, Philip, we are on 9-day turnarounds when the plans come out. So all this is integral with the contractor. So we want to be able to represent your interests when we review these type of plans and things too, because obviously they'll be developed, by the contractor. It'll be a short time frame that Brad mentioned.
Yeah.
They want the public input, so we kind of want to be able to. This is what we're kind of one of our goals is to do that legwork now. So.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, and we at least have some pretty good ideas, so hopefully,
Right.
By the time the contractor's on board, you can tell them this is what we want, or very close to it. That would be ideal. You can hash it out ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
As I mentioned, if we're 30 days late, then we're already a third of the time through some of the critical periods, so we want to be as prescient as we can. So.
Right. Okay. Well, that's a good discussion. Anything else on? But I think too what Joel said is maybe I'll circle back to you just in a couple of days and say, hey, if you've thought of any other items, well, even before we get the minutes done, we'll get this category. Get this list of ideas that we tossed out on the table just typed up, and I'll get that back to you outside of the minutes, just so we have that, and if that causes any other thoughts, get that back to me, and we'll feed that into Nathan and his group. So, okay. Anything else? Naming the quadrants, I really... kind of stuck on that.
I didn't want to get off the signage
Yes.
because that was a good conversation about signage, but it's one piece of the the planning and the assistance and the support. A lot of the support that will be asked for and necessary involves a lot of planning and investment, both by the neighborhoods or by the business owners or
mall. I mean, those of us that are going to have sizable construction areas are going to have to move, operations. Sometimes we may have to do some construction on site in order to accommodate our businesses. A lot of that will trigger counties permitting by ordinance and by code. I just caution, and specifically I'm working with the county, and the county's being very cognizant of the situation, and it's going well so far. But there are going to be a lot of businesses that aren't so prepared and don't have a plan, and will need some consideration on timeframes in order to get a site plan through. Mark, you can speak better to this probably than I can, but I mean, it's 3 months if everything is dialed in properly. If you need a special use permit to do something, moving your parking or something like that, it's 3 to 6 months to do that, and thousands of dollars, not to mention attorney's fees and engineering fees. There are substantial costs that are going to be incurred by these businesses and by these property owners, and time. And so when we talk about these 103 days, we don't have that time. We have to have 150 days prior to be ready.
Yeah.
And if we're going to have to relocate parking and relocate our business because of these temporary construction easements and these storm water detention basins and things like that we don't even know where they are, how significant they are yet.
Right.
We really need VDOT support. We need the county support. We need to be constructively thinking about how we can do this in a timely manner so that we can. I assume that everybody wants to work together and get the best deal out of this, but we really need for that conversation to happen early. And
I agree.
Really internalize how important that time frame is.
Yeah, I agree, and that's going to depend a lot on nailing down the contractor and getting this schedule. I do know that while this isn't final yet, in terms of the stormwater management areas, it looks like we will be able to meet the Part 2B criteria still at Rio, not off Rio, but it looks like we're going to be able to reduce the required acreage 50% or more.
No, it went up 100%, so it's coming back down.
It's coming back down.
Okay.
It's coming down probably considerably more than 50%.
Nevertheless.
Again, nevertheless, it doesn't matter. Your point is the same.
When that's determined, we'll be almost too late for us unless we have some things in motion ready to go by the time frame set by the municipality and in that process. And so one of the discussions that I had with the business assistants, roundtable that we have and I think Mark you alluded to this, that there's kind of a hotline, there's a liaison to this heat map, if you will, of affected property owners, so that when one of them reaches out, it's of a different urgency than somebody that's south of town affected, because the time is of the essence in this case. So I'll continue to say it at every meeting, but it's not just signage. I mean, there's a lot of time and energy that has to happen prior to be ready, and that can't happen overnight.
Okay.
So I didn't know if you were looking for wrap-up comments, but that's mine.
Well, that's a timely. We'll just count that as your wrap-up comment, and that's a good one. You have been reminding us of that, and not that we have been paying attention to it, but it's going to get real important real fast once we have a contractor here in the room. Well, it's important now. We'll just be able to know a lot more once we know who this team is going to be. Is everybody else good for a wrap-up? Chip, you might as well. You're good? Marty? Eddie? Mark? Mayor? Nothing here.
No, I'm good.
Karen?
Just back to Chip, my initial question about the business assistance or community assistance or whatever it's being called. And I understand part of that is not just financial assistance, but marketing, efforts and all of that for the affected businesses, neighborhoods. Not knowing, I mean, I've got over 100 businesses just in one property. A couple of those are major property owners that face 29, and I really have no clue what's being developed in assistance for them. So how I can get tapped into that and be able to report back to them, or I can tell them where they can get tapped into that information, where, that's why I was asking if there's a website or something to be posted. It would be
I would
really
say
helpful to
maybe
get that out there.
At this point, as soon as we have something, to be able to share, I would open it up if you would like for a group to meet with your business owner. I mean,
Well,
meet
even
with
so they
them
can just go,
specifically.
they're very busy too, the
Yeah.
time, and some of them, even in in a retail environment, the manager is the only employee maybe in the store at this
Right.
time of year, and they can't
Right.
leave.
Sure.
Even to come to our meetings sometimes, so,
Well, we can
or
do
have a coffee, so,
a bullet
yeah.
point thing, whatever works best, I think, is as soon as,
So there's nothing online right now where they can kind of get
But-
an idea. of
Maybe,
what's
maybe you guys can have a chat tomorrow, and let's shoot for having
Rather than
something
trying to
up
dig through the,
before our by our next meeting.
Supervisor meeting.
They can do that? Because I don't think it's all that much. I think it's just a matter of taking what you have, putting it in a spot, and telling people
Even if it's not
about it.
formulated yet, just to say,
Right.
well, this is some of the ideas.
Yeah,
I know I was
yeah.
going to meetings, I was at the board supervisor meetings, and
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of things written on white paper, but
Yeah.
Where is all
Okay.
that kind of
it
bubbling
exists.
to?
Yeah.
We're going to get that up for you before the next meeting. Okay? That's a darn good point. And it kind of ties with what Pete was saying too, is we're getting, last year we had a little bit more time to talk and generalize about some things, but it's getting real serious here. Okay. Henry?
Good discussion about signage.
Yeah, very good.
And I think it would be very helpful if on our next meeting, we can have more visuals on signage. If not the actual thing, examples.
Sure.
So that we know what we're talking about, or we can
Okay.
look at options.
I'll work with Nathan and we'll pull some stuff together.
Visuals will always help.
Yeah.
Because the whole issue is visuals. Signage is visuals. So,
It is.
yeah.
It is. Well, very good. Very good. Are we? Chuck, did you have anything?
No, we get out of class 15 minutes early today.
Well.
Tell them how to get ring.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you. We'll be back the 22nd.